Good evening and welcome. This meeting will be recorded. Welcome to the first 2026 Kresge Artist Fellowship Application Info Session. I'm Katie McGowan. I work as Director of Kresge Arts in Detroit, and I'm joined by my colleagues Jenny, Nicole, Asukili, and Lena to provide an overview of the 2026 Kresge Artist Fellowship Application Guidelines and to walk through a sample application in Slideroom, sharing best practices for your application this year. This year for accessibility, we will be using Communication Access Real-Time Translation, known by the acronym CART, to provide real-time captioning services for our info session. We'd like to thank Kate from Screenline Captioning for providing the captioning today. Thank you, Kate. Please note that captions do not automatically appear on your screen. Information on how to access captioning is posted in the chat right now. A little bit about Kresge Arts in Detroit. The program is generously funded by the Kresge Foundation and administered by the College for Creative Studies. We're going to start tonight with a program overview and some info about changes this application cycle. This year, the fellowship awards have been concentrated to a cohort of 10 Kresge Artist Fellows, sustained at $50,000 each. Those who have not received a fellowship within the last 10 years are eligible to apply. This year, 20 individuals will receive awards. There will be 10 fellowships at $50,000 each. And these awards will be divided between the two categories, live arts and film and music, based on the relative number of applications in each category. The Gilda Awards remain at $5,000 each, and those will go to 10 emerging artists. Here, emerging is defined by the artist. All applications are reviewed by a panel of local and national artists and arts professionals. Please keep in mind that within the application, opportunities can come from having your work seen. There's a box in the application where you can elect to allow Kresge Arts in Detroit to share your information with external curators or folks who have served on the panels if they, remember the work and want to include you in something. So that's an option. The application can serve as an opportunity for self-reflection, a chance to ask what your current needs, wants, and goals are as an artist. It can also help you prepare materials for other applications. As many of you probably are aware, when you have all your stuff together and you have your resume updated, it's a lot easier to approach a new application. We, as the Kresge Arts in Detroit staff that I previously named, are all artists and have all been through these processes. And so I encourage you to, as you apply, keep this stuff collated and ready for the next application, whatever it may be. A lot of the information you prepare for this application can be applied to others by compiling your thoughts and your supporting documents. You set yourself up for an easier time applying to other opportunities. And I lead with this because these are really competitive awards. And as you might guess, as the award sum moved up to $50,000, we have experienced an increase in volume of applications. So we always hammer home, try, and try again. Because it is super competitive and each year we receive more applications. Some basics. The application is submitted online in Slideroom and you apply at kresge.slideroom.com. The link can be found on the guidelines and kresgeartsindetroit.org/apply. Here, the guidelines are your absolute best tool in making your application. We work really hard to provide all the information that you need to apply on this document. So I highly recommend having it bookmarked or even printed out. The deadline. The applications are due by Thursday, January 15th, 2026 at 11:59 p.m. Please do not wait until the last minute to submit your application. Slideroom absolutely slows down every year around this time because of the volume of people who have waited until the last few hours to submit. And we make no exceptions to the rule, to the deadline rather. You have to press send or, press submit and get your application submitted before midnight or you are not able to apply this year. I'm going to now pass the mic over to my colleague Lena, who will discuss the award process.
Thank you, Katie, and hello, artists. I'm delighted to share an overview of the awards this year. This year's awards are in the categories of live arts and film and music. The live arts category includes choreography, dance, performance art, playwriting, storytelling, theater directing, and interdisciplinary work. The film and music category includes animation, film directing, music composition, music performance, screenwriting, sound art, and interdisciplinary work. Again, Kresge Artist Fellowships include $50,000, no strings attached, a personalized short film created by a local filmmaker, and access to 1 year of artist support programming. To be eligible, you must be 18 years or older and be a current legal resident of Macomb, Oakland, or Wayne County, and have resided in Macomb, Oakland, or Wayne County for at least the 2 years prior to the application deadline. This includes January 15th, 2024 through January 15th, 2026, and intend to remain a resident of the Tri-County area throughout the year-long fellowship period, and this includes July 2026 through July 2027, and have not received a Kresge Artist Fellowship within the last 10 years, and this includes 2015 through 2025. Regarding eligibility, if your application makes it to the final round of consideration for an award, you will be required to submit materials such as a government ID and redacted tax returns to document your legal residency in the Tri-County area for the last 2 years. These documents will only be requested directly by Kresge Arts in Detroit staff if your application makes it to the final rounds of review. More specifics are available on our website, and a link to the eligibility guidelines will be posted in the chat. Please review these and reach out to us, Kresge Arts in Detroit staff, at admin, ADMIN, at kresgeartsindetroit.org if you have specific inquiries regarding your eligibility, and who may not apply for the awards. Students working toward any degree at the time of application or individuals planning to begin a degree granting program during the fellowship year. And again, that fellowship year includes July 2026 through July 2027, with the exception of ABD, all but dissertation status PhD candidates. And again, who may not apply for the awards, individuals who have received a Kresge Artist Fellowship within the last 10 years, 2015 through 2025, may not apply for the awards. And who also may not apply for the awards, Kresge Eminent Artist Award recipients, and current Kresge Artist Fellowship panelists, staff members of Kresge Arts in Detroit, and the Kresge Foundation, or any immediate family members of any of these individuals. And now I can hand off the mic to my colleague Jenny to discuss the selection criteria.
Thank you, Lena. Now, I would like to share a little bit about the selection criteria for the Kresge Artist Fellowship and the Gilda Awards. We emphasize these criteria as they are the guiding framework for panel review and award selection. Kresge Artist Fellowships recognize creative vision and commitment to excellence within a wide range of artistic disciplines, including artists who have been academically trained, self-taught artists, and artists whose art forms have been passed down through cultural heritage. Fellowships recognize artists who have a demonstrated track record of artistic achievement and high-quality work. This is the main determinant in the selection of a fellow, and the potential to grow and advance in their artistic career, and the potential to reflect, enhance, or impact communities in Metro Detroit. Now let's talk about the Gilda Awards. Gilda Awards are $5,000, no strings attached. Named in honor of Gilda Snowden, CCS professor and 2009 Kresge Artist Fellow, Gilda Awards are the same application as the Kresge Artist Fellowships. There's a box within the application. You check it if you wish to be considered for a Gilda Award. You can choose to opt in or out of this consideration. Opting in does not detract from the opportunity to receive a fellowship. Now, the selection criteria for Gilda Awards. Gilda Awards recognize artists who are early in their careers and are gaining momentum and demonstrate exceptional potential through creative risk-taking and pushing the boundaries of their chosen art form. A note, early in career does not need to mean early in your life. This term is self-defined. With regards to the Kresge Artist Fellowship and Gilda Award selection process, after the deadline, applications are reviewed by local and national panelists over many months. In summer of 2026, artists are notified of their application status, and the Kresge Artist Fellowships and Gilda Awards are announced. We encourage you to continue applying if you don't receive a fellowship or a Gilda Award in the year you apply, as each year, a new group of Kresge Artist Fellowship panelists are convened, bringing fresh perspectives and preferences to the review process. There's also an opt-in box, Katie mentioned this earlier, that will allow Kresge Arts in Detroit to share your application materials with panelists who review your application, as well as with peer organizations and curators who may have opportunities for you. Now I'm going to hand it back to Katie, who will discuss the process of applying through Slideroom.
Thank you. So once you're in, we're going to be going into Slideroom with a slideshow here. Once you are inside your Slideroom application, you will see three numbers along the top. Section 1 is Forms. This is where you confirm your eligibility, complete your artist profile, and work on your statements. As you move through the various forms, Slideroom will confirm the info is complete with a green check mark next to the name of each form. If you don't see a check mark, you will need to revisit that section before submitting. We collect demographics to ensure that our work contributes to an environment that collectively supports all artists of Metro Detroit. Section 2 is called your portfolio, and this is where you upload your work samples. As you upload each sample, Slideroom will ask you to complete the work sample labels. Drop and drag the samples to arrange in the order you would like the panelists to view them. Remember to use the additional details field to provide panelists with a synopsis or supplemental information to explain the context, concept, or execution of each work sample. Something we hear in the panel room each year is how much panelists appreciate when artists do fill these in. Some of them are required, others are not. And they work as a grounding device for the panelists to both understand what this work is and to as an aid to memory because they're reviewing hundreds of applications. Navigate to Section 3 when you're ready to submit your application. You must click Submit for your application to be received. If you have not completed all parts of the application, Slideroom will tell you which parts you need to revisit. Click any listed items to navigate directly to those areas of your application. You may click Save and Exit at any point to pause and return to your application later. This means you don't need to do your whole application in one sitting. You can do it over the course of a couple weeks if you want. You just need to save your work and return to Slideroom, and you'll see that your app is saved within as an in-progress application. Next, we'll go into detail on the Slideroom application. To begin with, Asukili will discuss building out your work samples in Slideroom.
Thank you, Katie. Now we'll begin discussing work samples. For these next few sections, we'll be drawing examples from the application of 2024 Film and Music Fellow Maurice Drawn. So, to begin with, work sample basics. Work samples are the most important part of an application. Now let's get into what is required for each application as well as what isn't allowed. So for live arts, we're looking for 3 to 8 unique work samples in any combination of manuscript, also known as PDF, audio, or video files. Please note that while the image file type is available for this category, images are only accepted if you're applying in the theater directing discipline. If you submit them for any of the other disciplines, those work samples will be deemed ineligible. Now, for film and music, we're looking for 3 to 8 unique work samples in any combination of manuscript or PDF, audio, or video files. Your work samples should make sense both individually and as a group. And your work samples should clearly match your statements. For example, if your work samples are all animated videos, your statement shouldn't be about being a songwriter unless you can directly correlate those things. Lastly, we do want to note that there will be no external links accepted in the submitted work samples. Applications will be evaluated exclusively in Slideroom. So from here, we're going to move over to work sample info and the sorts of information that are asked for in each work sample. So within each work sample, we ask about these following details: the title of the work, your role in the creation of the work, whether the work is an excerpt or a complete work, the year the work was completed, or you can simply note that it is a work in progress, length in pages of the complete work. This is in regards to manuscripts only. Duration in minutes of the complete work. This is for audio and video samples only. The genre represented, which again is for manuscripts only, and the description. Now, in the description, we ask that you provide panelists with a synopsis or supplemental information to explain the context, concept, and/or execution of each work sample. This field is especially important. Due to the high volume of applicants in early rounds, panelists are asked to focus on work samples, not statements. So this is your best opportunity to provide context for your work. Within this sample provided by Maurice, named Metamorphosis, Movements 2 and 3, you can read the following. Metamorphosis for violin, cello, and harp is a multi-movement work inspired by Robert Duncan's poem of the same name. Each movement follows the prose of the poem with the correlation of musical segments and stanzas. Utilizing musical elements, the narrative of the three is depicted continuously throughout the performance by the trio. This piece was commissioned by the Eason Trio. It is an honor to compose a piece for my former harp teacher's trio. The attached excerpt is from a virtual premiere of the work due to the pandemic. Fortunately, there was a live premiere of the work in June of 2021. All right, now we're going to move on to work sample requirements. Each media sample may represent only one work or performance. You may include different sections of the same work in a work sample, but you may not include sections of different works within the same work sample. No more than 8 work samples should be represented within your application. Materials designed for commercial or promotional purposes will not be accepted. This includes trailers, reels, flyers, interviews, press clippings, compilations, and so on. PDFs with external links will also not be accepted. Again, applications are evaluated exclusively in Slideroom. So, moving into some work sample tips. You do not need to submit 8 work samples if you feel your practice is better represented with fewer. Present your strongest work first. Panelists always review work samples in order. Begin and end each work sample where you will want the panel to begin and end. Make sure your work samples are the highest quality documentation possible and make sense with your artist statement. And be sure to include some examples of recent creative work. For example, work made within the last 5 years, as panelists will want to get a sense of your current artistic practice. You may also include older work, however, especially if you have a long artistic career or are proud of a piece you made a decade ago, for example. Now I'll pass things back to my colleague Katie to discuss the narrative components of the application.
Thanks, Asukili. So a little bit of an overview of the narrative components. Um, As mentioned, the work samples are the most important aspect of your application. The actual work that you make. Resumes and statements are looked at in later rounds of the process, but the work samples are first and foremost the thing that you would be receiving an award for. Statements. This starts off, this is a drop-down menu. The discipline selection, rather, is a drop-down menu where you select the option that best describes the work in your application. Lots of artists who work in all different realms are applying, and here you are speaking to what you are submitting. Even if you have like a practice that spans all these different categories, you want to speak to what you are applying in with this particular application. So it's a drop down. Next up is the discipline statement, and this is a short, succinct description of what you do. For example, I'm a hip hop dancer and choreographer, or I'm an artist who uses synthesizers to compose electronic music. Just a short, direct statement about what you do. Next is the artist bio. Here we ask you to please provide a short description of your history as an artist, such as where you were born or grew up, what influenced your creative development and your artistic career to date. Next, after that is the artist statement. This is an introduction to your work or a specific series of work. Give an overview of what you produce and why you produce it. Why is the work meaningful, significant, or important to you? What concepts, themes, or ideas are you addressing, and how do you produce it? A tip here is that within your category, the panelists will be from various different disciplines. So if you're applying in film and music, there will be both film forward people and music forward people. So we recommend here that you use plain language, not jargon that's specific to your field, and to really like be clear about how the way that you speak about your work. Use your own voice here. You don't have to try to write in like art speak or anything like that. This is like authenticity comes through. Your statement should address both the conceptual and technical aspects of your creative work. Your statement may also include information about any influences that inform or directly relate to your work. This is oftentimes helpful for panelists who are like trying to ground what your practice is in a historic context. This could be work by other creative practitioners, but it could also be influences drawn from pop culture, current world events, other disciplines, activities you have participated, and or affiliations you have. Next statement is the community impact statement. Here we ask you to describe how your work impacts or inspires individuals and groups around you. This might include artists of Detroit, students you work with, residents of your neighborhood, etc. And here, we don't want you to be daunted by this. You may speak to the communities you currently impact or communities you hope to impact in the future. These awards are for artists of all career stages. So when an earlier career artist approaches us, we don't want you to think that you have to already have had this deep impact. Speak to where you want to go. Fellowship goals is the next statement. Explain how you imagine using the fellowship resources, such as the financial award and artist support. How would the fellowship contribute to the advancement of your creative work and career goals? Fellowships are not project grants. You do not need to outline a specific project. If you do, you will not be required to complete the project if awarded a fellowship. This is a big difference between a grant and a fellowship. In this case, these are no strings attached awards. So the money, if awarded, is yours to use as you see fit. And you don't have to report back on it or submit a final budget or anything like that. The resume is the next piece. Please list educational background and professional experiences that reflect your artistic accomplishments. This could be performances, screenings, honors, awards, commissions, residencies, lectures, or publications. List the most recent work, most recent information first. This is for all career stages. Don't be intimidated. Only include details that relate to your practice, but be creative. Think about the ways in which your different experiences intersect. This is the case where you can talk about how being a bartender helped your storytelling, or how your work in food service informed your perspective in the way that you view a room, etc. And so be creative here, and think holistically of what makes you what has informed your perspective as an artist. Now, Asukili will present some examples of these narrative components in action.
All right. Thank you, Katie. To show some examples of these narrative components at work, we'd like to pull a few excerpts from Maurice Strawn's application that illustrate the concepts that Katie covered, starting with the artist statement. Now, your statement should address both the conceptual and technical aspects of your creative work. Here, Maurice describes the goals of his work. As an emerging composer, my artistic passion is to diversify the harp repertoire through the inclusion of compositions for harp by underrepresented composer. Then he goes into his influences. My passion is grounded in the work of African American trailblazers who forged a path for me to embark on my journey as a harpist and composer. It is my desire to compose using my experience and expertise as a professional harpist, with influences from the works of Carlos Salcedo to Dorothy Ashby. Through my experience as an arranger and performer, I developed a compositional style that encompasses a variety of genres and styles. Then he also provides details about his current work. My compositional output in the academic sphere began with a series of original instruction pieces. The TIP series, Theory in Practice and Performance, composed for harp students of various skill levels while introducing them to musical concepts. From this series, I received my first commission for an original work, 3 Stages, a collaborative work between harp ensemble and dance company. 3 Stages was followed by my next set of commission works in the artistic realm, Trilogy for harp and organ, as well as Metamorphosis for violin, cello, and harp. Additional works include the Doralis Suite for harp solo, composed in homage to Dorothy Ashby and Alice Coltrane, as well as A Canon of Peace for harp and organ, composed to encourage those who experience hardship and loss during the COVID-19 pandemic. Next, we'll move on to the community impact statement. Here, again, you want to speak to the communities you impact currently or those you hope to impact in the future. In Maurice's statement, he begins by discussing his existing collaborations within the community. Making an impact on the future generation of composers has been my aim since emerging into the field as a composer. Locally, I have served as a mentor to high school students across Metro Detroit in composition. My direct impact comes each school year as I mentor students at Cass Tech in my choral program, music theory, and piano classes to compose and arrange music of their own. This form of mentorship has allowed me to impact the students beyond the curriculum by providing them with the freedom to find and express their own voice through their compositional output. I also served as a mentor for Mosaic Youth Theater's New Voices Detroit. Again, you can also speak to who you wish to impact, as seen here. I have also sought to inspire singers and musicians alike in the community through the creation of compositions and arrangement for ensembles ranging from choral groups to harp ensembles. As an arranger, I contributed numerous arrangements for several student groups, including choral programs in the Detroit Public Schools Community District, as well as the Mosaic Singers from the Mosaic Youth Theater of Detroit. Now, moving into fellowship goals. In our example here, you can see that Maurice begins by stating the impact the fellowship could have and detailing his professional goals. The Kresge Arts Fellowship will provide me with the exposure and funding needed to emerge as a composer. My career goals as a composer include: 1, participation at music festivals and conferences through public performances and lecture presentations of my compositions in the Detroit area and beyond. 2, attendance at composer symposiums to study with established composers to expand my compositional technique. And 3, the creation of professional recordings for my catalog of compositions. The fellowship would most certainly contribute to accomplishing these career goals. From there, he explains how he'd imagine using the fellowship resources and how the fellowship would contribute to the advancement of his creative work and career goals with the following statement. The funding will provide much needed promotional support in covering publication costs for typesetting and printing equipment. Investing in high-grade equipment and materials would allow me to offer a more professional quality of printed scores. I would also be able to use the funding to expand my online presence through sessions with a professional photographer, videographer, and web designer to update my website and artistic portfolio as a composer and performer. Now, we hope that these examples have been helpful. Each of these narrative components is vital in showcasing your application in the best possible light for review. I will now hand things back to my colleague Katie to discuss recommendations, tips, and strategies.
Thank you. For this section, we have 3 reminders for you. Number 1, place your strongest work first. We instruct panelists to review the work samples in the order in which they were submitted. And so come in strong. It creates a strong impression with the panelists that will stay with them throughout the review process. And panelists are reviewing hundreds and hundreds of applications and are asked to review work samples in these orders. So this is, again, where I'll jump in with the other tip, is to really use those the additional information field to help aid the panelist's memory when they revisit the work during the process. You need not, with a work sample, you need not start from page 1 or frame 1. For example, if submitting an excerpt of a screenplay, you're welcome to begin the sample at any point in the narrative. And so here, instead of building up the plot, or submitting a sample that's building up the plot, you can use the additional information field to give a really short synopsis and explain where your sample is starting. Start early and submit early. The system, as I mentioned before, slows down on the day of the deadline, and with lots of applicants trying to submit. And for parity's sake, we do not accept a single late application, regardless of reason, and that's not to be punitive, it's to be fair. And so the application is open until January 15th, 2026 at 11:59 p.m. Reach out to your support system. Ask a family member, friend, or colleague to review your application materials. Ask if your statements are clear and engaging. Ask if your work samples represent you well and make sense as a collection. Now, Asukili will discuss what happens after you submit your app.
So, what happens after submitting? After the application deadline, Kresge Arts and Detroit staff reviews all applications to ensure they meet the application guidelines and eligibility criteria. Staff may request additional information from an applicant at any time during the process. Applications that appear to meet the eligibility criteria and application guidelines are forwarded for consideration by the selection panel. Over several months, through multiple rounds, local and national panelists review those eligible applications and select the fellowship recipients. New panelists participate every year. In the final stages of review, Kresge Arts and Detroit staff contact artists whose applications remain in consideration. Applicants are asked to confirm and document that they meet the eligibility criteria. At all stages, Kresge Arts in Detroit makes the determination, in its sole discretion, as to whether the eligibility criteria, including proof of past, current, and future residency, and application guidelines have been met. Artists will be notified of their application status by email in summer of 2026. Now, for next steps, a recording of this session will be available on our website within the next week. Please review the guidelines closely, gather and edit your work samples, decide the review order you'll present in, and submit your online application. Another reminder, the deadline is Thursday, January 15th, 2026 by 11:59 p.m. There are no exceptions to this deadline, once again, to remain equitable for all applicants. Bear in mind that the app must be submitted, not just completed. You have to click that submit button, otherwise we can't really help. The system shuts down automatically at the deadline. Please submit well in advance of the deadline. Don't get caught on the little details or check boxes of the application right at 11:59. Now, we will be holding an online Q&A a week before the application closes. That's Thursday, January 8th, 2026, from 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. You can register through Zoom at the link provided in the chat, and we will be available to answer any questions you have as you move about completing your applications. As far as support, for general support, you can email us at admin@kresgeartsindetroit.org. As far as social media, you can connect with us on Instagram or Facebook. Please feel free to follow us on social media for tips throughout the application cycle. And for tech support, for example, uploading work samples, we ask that you contact support.slideroom.com, or you can email support@slideroom.com. Please note that Kresge Arts and Detroit staff are unable to provide account or technical support for the Slideroom platform. You will need to contact them directly. Now, we are going to move things over for some questions and answers, and I will hand things off to Katie.
Thanks, Asakili. So this is good. We have a brief time. We have almost 15 to 20 minutes to answer your questions about any of the information that's covered today. If you have questions, please post them in the Q&A chat now. For questions that we're not able to get to tonight, please follow up with us at the admin account that is listed in the chat, and we will get back to you. One of the things that, despite working on this and reviewing it with my colleagues, something I want to mention in this is Kresge Arts and Detroit staff has no say. We have no vote in who is selected as a fellow. Each year there is a panel for each category selected of arts professionals, local and national, artists and arts practitioners, and that panel changes every year. And so this is something I really want to foreground, because sometimes people think that we, the five of us, the Kresge Arts and Detroit staff, are choosing the fellows. That is definitely not the case, and just want to highlight that. So Jenny is going to read questions, and I will do my best to reply. If there are questions that are really specific to your application, we ask that you hold off on them in this forum and to write us with the questions, because here we're aiming to serve the large group of people who's in attendance. So Jenny, please hit me.
All right. Our first question comes from L. Rosa. Does storytelling include writers?
Good question. Storytelling in this context is stories that were intended to be performed live or in a, stories that were meant to be performed versus or told versus stories that were meant to be written on the page. Kresge Arts in Detroit alternates categories each year. So next year will be literary arts and literary arts and visual arts. So if you're a writer who writes for the page, that's when you would apply. If you are a writer or a storyteller who present primarily, or in this case, for the work samples you're submitting, if you are a person who tells stories live or performs them, does podcast storytelling, this is the context for live arts storytelling. If you are a storyteller, a writer who's writing short fiction or novels, that is for next year for literary arts.
Thank you. From C. McKinney, what is the definition of live performance?
We sort of back off from trying to write a really specific definition of each field because we want there to be room for new development and for the panel to really think about what is live performance. And so you said live performance or live arts? Live performance.
Live performance.
So live performance could be it could be an actor on the stage. It could be a person on a street corner doing some kind of an intervention. It could be any type of work where the art itself is intended to be presented in a time-based format.
Okay, thank you. From A. Thomas, can master's students apply?
They may not. No one who is in a degree-seeking program, with the one exception of ABD PhD students, may apply. So I regret you will be ineligible if you're currently enrolled in a master's program, but you will be eligible when you finish the program.
Thank you. From R. Tompkins Jones, can you say more about what is considered interdisciplinary work?
Yes, of course. So interdisciplinary, like saying we're in the film and music category. This could be that an artist both shoots the visuals and mixes the audio, mixes the sound or the music that is in the film. It's, again, by design, we don't put like strict definitions because there's artists who develop their own interdisciplinary practices. So we don't want to be didactic in that regard, but interdisciplinarity is by nature, including different media, different types of performance in this case, or different types of media in this case. So yeah, interdisciplinary here. Some folks apply with an application that's all screenplays, and that's totally cool. And then other folks may apply in an interdisciplinary in the interdisciplinary category and submit, an excerpt of a screenplay, some video, an excerpt of a video they made, etc. And so it's for people who have these sort of wraparound skills and practices to allow you to submit samples and in a category that best represents you. Also, in these categories, they're not rigid. We use them primarily as a back-end administrative tool during the panel process. So we can say to the panelists, like, everyone collectively, we're going to look at film directing. And so we do not give the panel any strict rules about we need one music composer, one, concert pianist. We don't give restrictions on that. And I recommend not getting hung up on the discipline selection because it is largely an administrative tool.
Thank you. Next, from S. Dallin, can you apply in more than one category?
Here, if you are a live arts practitioner and a film and music practitioner, you may create two applications. You may not do two disciplines, which are the drop downs within those categories, but if you legitimately have a live arts practice and a film and music practice, you may submit in both categories. Most folks don't have that, and you wouldn't be submitting the same application. The work samples would need to be different and applicable to the category. But if you have that type of practice, you may.
Thank you for answering that. From G. Hutchings, how many people typically apply?
Hundreds of people. It's not a typical. We've had a lot of variation over the years, pertaining to world events, pandemic, the sum. Last year we had a record number of applications at around 1,200 applications. So typical doesn't really work because each year is a different beast. But hundreds of applications, and anticipating this year being a lot of applications, given that this is now only the second year of the award being of $50,000.
Thank you. This one's a little bit longer, and I'm going to read it verbatim. This is from S. Coleman. For the work samples, I understand that you should not turn in two samples for the same work, i.e., I shouldn't turn in a script and audio of that script being performed. I am wondering, though, if you do two different things on one project, can you submit two samples? i.e., for playwriting, the script, then if I also directed it, can I turn in performance stills to show that?
I don't want to lead you astray, and so that question feels to, at least in the batting cage that I feel like I'm in right now. I don't want to answer that in a flippant way. So please do write us the question, and we can respond in a more thoughtful way. That one feels hard to tackle off the top of my head right now. Apologies.
From H. Franco, what is the file size permitted per video for upload?
The file size for the videos, they can be .mov or MP4. It's on page 5 of the guidelines. If you want to review this, it's 250 megabits, which is approximately 2.5 minutes of high def or 5 minutes of standard def. And here, a little tip is if Slideroom will accept your sample, you're good. We don't have any restrictions beyond what Slideroom will hold. So if you're able to successfully upload your work sample, it's made it. And for other really specific questions about file size, it is on they are on page 5 of the guidelines.
Thank you. From J. Thomas, is it best to write in first person or third person?
There is no best. Please write the way you want to write. This is something internally, like we talked about. We've visited and revisited over the years, and we always land with not being didactic about which way it should be written, and allowing the panelists, excuse me, allowing the artists to represent themselves the way they feel most authentic. And again, at this juncture, it's like I just really encourage people to write in your own voice. People, the panelists, when they're reading these, feel the humanity when it's like you understand the person is speaking from the heart, versus what I at least associate was like in college, like trying to write at a different with a different voice. So here, I think authenticity comes through, and we encourage you to write in the first or third person, whatever feels best for you.
Thank you. From T. Hauser, you mentioned that judges will only view applications in Slideroom. In previous applications, there has been a space for artist websites. Will this be part of the 2026 application?
It will not. We there was a field in the application for the artist website, but then we would also explicitly say that panelists should be reviewing only in Slideroom. And so that felt like a mixed message. And so no, the work samples all have to be uploaded into Slideroom. And this is something that I'll put a pin in, because Sometimes we have people who are like sneaking links into PDFs or trying to put external links. Those are not compliant work samples. So you actually want to upload the file. And the reasoning behind this is if you have it on YouTube or Vimeo, you can go, after the deadline and edit the work or upload a better version of it. And so all samples are viewed in Slideroom and we are not accepting external links.
Thank you. From Jay Riley, can I submit some of the same elements from my previous application as part of the current application?
Absolutely. And this is something where there's no like punitive behind the scenes, like, oh, you already did this. Like it's a different panel each year. And so if you applied a couple of years ago, of course there's crossover work sample, especially if you're working in long form um, film and video or any kind of composition. So definitely, and don't think twice about it. You can use work samples as many times as you need until you win. And there's no demerit for doing so. And the panel is all new each year, so no one will ever know besides you.
Thank you. From T. Robinson, if you have done the same play for different years, can I send images or videos from each year?
Yes.
Thank you. From L. Walker, can you explain some examples of what interdisciplinary work might look like?
Yes. I want to think for a moment. The first thing I thought of was an interdisciplinary application in live arts could be someone who works with their body, a person who dances, sings, and performs. And some of those samples may be um, a person, say, telling a story. And then maybe there's a sample of said artist performing, something they choreographed. And it's a video of them performing something they choreographed along with a story that they told. Thinking about folks who do performance art, crossing over into this like body work. Other interdisciplinary practices could be like what I cited earlier about like film. There's lots of filmmakers oftentimes wear a lot of hats. And so it could be an interdisciplinary filmmaker or, an application in film and music where, that person is, say they're a film and music person, they're composing the score and they are shooting the video and directing. So those are some examples. I think there's sort of like a gut test with interdisciplinary work, which is like as you're bringing together your work samples that you think represent you and your art practice the best, to look at those and see which category they fit best into. And again, we get a lot of questions about category, and here I encourage you to assemble which work you're most proud of and which work best represents you. And then figure out which one of those drop-down categories best fits you instead of trying to fit into it. And so if you have these various media in your top 5 work samples or 8 work samples, that's the place to go. You figure it out from there instead of trying to like write to the test.
Thank you. From L. Conway, what is a common avoidable mistake that ends up weakening an otherwise strong application?
Ooh, I love this one.
That's a good one.
It's not a mistake, but not using those extra descriptive fields. That's like the number one thing. Like when folks call and they want support in the applications, like that's the thing. Like, please just give the extra info because the panelists are human and they are reviewing hundreds of applications. And so getting, say if they're scrolling through, looking at work, having that context there is so helpful, and it helps just ground them before they ever watch the video or listen to the composition. So that's a big one. I would also use, sometimes there are things that are in the guidelines, again, going back to page 5 of the guidelines. Pay attention to which category you're applying in and which are eligible work samples so you don't get samples marked compliant, to make sure all of your samples are compliant. And so those are the big ones.
Thank you. We have time for one more question, so I'm going to share from B. Muhammad. Would you recommend waiting until the Q&A in January, or would you recommend submitting as early as possible?
That's super subjective. If I were to give you like a best practice, and if you know if you have was get your application together, don't submit it. If by that info session you still feel like there's something amiss, attend the info session or write us ahead of time and submit your question and then submit right after or the next day. Like, do not wait until the last couple days because the people you see here are our entire staff, and we also have a lot of other work that we do unrelated to answering phones and emails. So we want to be supportive, like we care about the artist community, and we want to be able to support you, and we are much more easily able to respond and to answer questions sooner than later. So with that question, I recommend getting your application done early. If you feel great about it, submit it, tick it off, be one of the early submitters. And if not, if you still have some lingering questions, wait until after the info session and submit shortly thereafter. So thank you. Actually a really thoughtful question. For insider baseball, the applications that are submitted early are not reviewed early, but it gets you the peace of mind to know that it's off your plate and it's fully submitted. We at Kresge Arts in Detroit, as Asukili mentioned, we are able to answer questions that you have about your application or about the application. And email is best. We also have the phone number listed in the guidelines, and the Slideroom is available for tech support. We do not have any special intel with Slideroom. I noticed earlier someone in the questions asked, is it, I've heard there's a fee for Slideroom. There is a fee for Slideroom that we cover. Kresge Arts in Detroit covers. So the application is free, and you can use those application materials. Like if you submit it in a earlier cycle, if you log into the same account, your application will be there. So that's what we have for you today. I want to thank my colleagues for their great work in the behind the scenes prep for this, and to thank all of you for being here. It's not easy to make these applications. It's mentally and emotionally challenging, and you're brave for working on it. And these awards are super competitive. Not gonna lie, we send out way more declines than we do good news. That said, it is a numbers game. Like, there's a different panel each time with different perspectives and different aesthetics. So please apply. Wishing you all the best as you do this. We're here to support you. We believe in you, and we thank you. The artists of Metro Detroit do so much for our culture and so much for our lives. So thank you for all you do, and best wishes on your application, and have lovely holiday season. Good night.